Okay, let's unpack this. I want to start with a question that sounds a little crazy, but bear with me. Have you ever been in a situation where you had a splitting headache, absolutely pounding, and you popped a pill, maybe just a standard ibuprofen or an aspirin, and you felt the pain vanish literally the moment you swallowed it?
Oh, absolutely. The water hasn't even hit my stomach yet, but the relief is instant. It's like flipping a switch.
Right. But here's the thing. Biologically, that is impossible.
Completely impossible.
The pill hasn't dissolved. It hasn't entered your digestive tract. It hasn't hit your bloodstream. And it certainly hasn't touched a single pain receptor in your brain.
So physically nothing.
So,
What just happened?
what happened is that your brain anticipated the relief and decided to provide it. It didn't wait for the chemical. It released its own painkillers because it knew they were coming.
See, that right there is the hook. Usually we brush that experience off. We say, oh, it's all in my head.
Yeah, as if in your head means it's not real. Exactly, as if it's a hallucination or something imaginary. But today, we are doing a deep dive into a book that argues that what happens in your head might be the most chemically real thing in your body.
It's a fascinating look at the biology of belief. We're covering the expectation effect, how your mindset can transform your life, by the science journalist David Robson. And I'm glad you started with the pill example, because we need to clear the air immediately about what this book is, and more importantly, what it isn't.
Yes, the woo-woo alarm. I can hear it ringing already.
You can, right, the woo-woo alarm. When people hear phrases like mindset or expectation or belief, they immediately think of The Secret. They think of manifesting a Ferrari or wishing away a tumor with positive vibes.
I want $1 million. I want $1 million. And then you check your bank account and it's still empty.
Precisely. And David Robson is incredibly careful to distance himself from that right from page 1. This isn't magic. This isn't about the universe granting your wishes because you visualize them. This is about neuroscience. It's about physiology. It's about the specific, measurable ways that the brain, which is a physical organ, remember, sends chemical signals to the rest of the body based on what it predicts is about to happen.
That word predict is the pivot point for the whole book.
Okay.
I think most of us, and I include myself here, walk around with what you might call the camera model of the brain.
Oh, for sure.
I have eyes, and they act like lenses. I have ears, and they are microphones. The world happens out there, and my brain just passively records it in here.
It feels that way. It feels like we are just observing reality. But neurologically, that is dead wrong.
So break that down. If the brain isn't a camera, what is it?
It's a simulation engine, a prediction machine. Think about it this way. The brain is locked in a dark, silent vault called your skull. It has no direct contact with the world. It never sees light. It never hears sound. It only gets these noisy electrical spikes traveling up your nerves from your sensory organs. To make sense of that chaos in real time, it can't just process every single bit of data from scratch. It's too slow.
It would be like trying to render a Pixar movie in real time on a 1990s computer. You'd buffer, you'd freeze.
Perfect analogy. You would buffer. So instead of processing everything, the brain guesses. It uses your past experiences, your memories, and your cultural expectations to build a model of what should be there. It constructs the world first, and then uses the sensory data just to check for errors.
So what I'm seeing right now isn't 100% reality, it's a prediction.
It's a hallucination that happens to agree with reality. Robson calls them microillusions. We see this in how we taste food, how we feel pain, and even how we perceive fatigue. The input from the world is just raw data. Your brain adds the flavor, the hurt, or the tiredness based on context.
This is a huge concept to wrap your head around, but it explains why the pill worked before it dissolved. My brain predicted pain relief, so it ran the pain relief simulation.
Exactly. And this brings us to the most famous example of the expectation effect, the placebo.
I feel like placebo is a word we all know, but we don't actually understand.
I agree. The word actually comes from Latin, meaning I shall please. Historically, in medicine, a placebo was a sham treatment given just to comfort a patient when the doctor couldn't actually do anything. It was a lie.
And for a long time, modern medicine treated the placebo effect as a nuisance, right? It was noise in the data. If a pharmaceutical company develops a new drug and it only works as well as a sugar pill, the drug is considered a failure.
Right. They scrubbed the data to get rid of the placebo effect. But Robson argues they were missing the point. If the sugar pill worked, that's amazing.
Yeah, if I take a Tic Tac and my depression lifts, or my blood pressure drops, or my pain vanishes, why do we care that it was a Tic Tac? The body healed itself.
Exactly. It means the body has an internal pharmacy that can be unlocked simply by the belief that it is being treated. But we have to look at the flip side. Because if placebo means I shall please, there is an evil twin called nocebo.
I shall harm.
Correct. And if placebo is the brain predicting health and creating it, the nocebo is the brain predicting damage and creating it. And Robson tells a story in the book that, honestly, it felt like reading a horror novel. It really illustrates the extreme power of this mechanism.
You're talking about the Hmong immigrants, the nightmare death syndrome.
Yes, this is a medical mystery that actually stumped the CDC for years.
Set the scene for us because this is wild.
So we are in the late 1970s and early 1980s. You have the Hmong people fleeing the aftermath of the Vietnam War. They are refugees displaced from the mountains of Laos, and they get resettled in the United States. It's a very different culture, a very different environment. They are traumatized, isolated, and grieving. And suddenly, in 1977, healthy young men start dying.
And when you say healthy, you mean?
I mean, medically perfect. No heart disease, no genetic defects, no toxins in their system. These were men in their 30s, and they were dying in their sleep. They would go to bed fine, and in the middle of the night, their breathing would become labored, they'd groan, and then gone.
It's terrifying.
It was so widespread among this specific population that it got a name: sudden unexplained nocturnal death syndrome. The medical examiners were bafflingly empty-handed. They couldn't find a virus, they couldn't find a poison. They were doing autopsies on these hearts and finding nothing wrong.
So how did they eventually connect it to belief?
They started talking to the families. They started looking at the cultural context, and they found this specific thread of folklore. In the Hmong tradition, there is a spirit called the Dabsog. It's this jealous night hag spirit that comes for you when you haven't honored your ancestors properly.
And these refugees were thousands of miles from their ancestors' graves. They couldn't perform their traditional rituals. They probably felt incredibly guilty and spiritually vulnerable.
Exactly. They felt unprotected. And the belief was that the Dabsog sits on your chest at night and crushes the life out of you.
That sounds a lot like sleep paralysis.
It aligns perfectly with sleep paralysis. You wake up, you can't move, you feel a heavy weight on your chest. Now, for you or me, sleep paralysis is scary, but we know what it is. We wait it out. But for these men, this was the confirmation of their deepest, deadliest fear.
So the theory is they woke up paralyzed, saw the demon in their mind, and panicked.
Panic doesn't even cover it. It was a massive nocebo storm. The brain predicted a lethal attack. It dumped such a massive load of catecholamines, those are potent stress hormones, into the system that it basically short-circuited the heart's electrical impulses.
They were literally scared to death.
Their hearts locked up. It's a tragic, extreme example, but it proves the biological reality of the prediction machine. The brain expected death, so the body delivered it.
That is heavy. But it really drives home the point that this isn't just thinking happy thoughts. It's about the biological instructions the brain sends to the organs.
Exactly. And we see milder versions of this all the time.
Yeah.
If you read the side effects on a pill bottle, say, may cause nausea, you are statistically much more likely to feel nausea than someone who didn't read the label.
I do that. I read the label and suddenly my stomach feels weird. I'm doing it to myself.
You are. Your brain predicts the nausea, simulates the symptoms, and your gut responds.
So this raises a huge ethical question. If placebos heal us and nocebos hurt us, should doctors be tricking us? Like, should my doctor give me a sugar pill and tell me it's a superdrug?
That's the pious fraud. Thomas Jefferson actually called it that. But ethically, in modern medicine, doctors can't lie. Informed consent is everything. However, Robson brings up this fascinating new research on open-label placebos.
This is where it gets really interesting to me, the idea that you can know it's a fake pill and it still works.
It sounds paradoxical. It sounds like it shouldn't work. But they did studies specifically with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and chronic back pain. They gave patients a pill and told them clearly, this is a placebo. It has no active ingredients. It is sugar and cellulose.
Here is a sugar pill. Take it twice a day.
But, and this is the crucial part, they explained why it might work. They explained that the ritual of taking a pill, the body's memory of being treated, can stimulate the immune system and pain relief. It's essentially Pavlovian conditioning.
Like Pavlov's dog salivating at the bell.
Exactly. We have spent our whole lives learning that pill equals relief. That connection is hardwired in our neural pathways. So performing the ritual, even if you know the pill is inert, triggers the relief program in the brain.
And it worked?
It worked significantly better than no treatment. Patients reported less pain and fewer symptoms, even though they knew they were taking nothing.
That's wild. So the takeaway here isn't lie to yourself, it's lean into the ritual.
Precisely. You don't have to trick your conscious mind. You just have to signal your subconscious machinery.
Okay, speaking of signaling machinery, let's talk about exercise, because this section of the book made me want to, well, not go to the gym, but maybe think about the gym differently.
This is one of my favorite studies in the whole book. It's the Harvard Hotel Cleaner study.
Okay, I'm with you on a voodoo death. Extreme terror stops a heart. I get that. But this next section, this is where I started to get skeptical.
You're talking about the Hotel Cleaner study.
Yes, the Harvard study, because this sounds like diet pill marketing. Lose weight by just thinking about it. It sounds too good to be true.
It does sound suspicious. So let's look at the methodology, because that's where the magic is. This was Aaliyah Crumb's work. She took 84 hotel chambermaids. Now, if you've ever cleaned a house or even just changed a duvet cover, you know it is hard physical labor.
It's brutal. Lifting mattresses, pushing heavy carts, scrubbing tubs. You are sweating.
Right. These women were burning huge amounts of calories every single day. But when Crumb asked them, do you exercise regularly? Or do you know what he said?
They said no.
2/3 said no. They considered themselves inactive. Their mental model of exercise was spandex, treadmills, suffering, gym. Their job was just work. It was tiring, it was a chore, but it wasn't exercise.
So their mindset was, I am sedentary, even though their bodies were moving all day.
Exactly. So Crumb takes half the group, the intervention group, and gives them a 15-minute presentation. She shows them the Surgeon General's guidelines for an active lifestyle. And then she connects the dots. She says, look, vacuuming is cardio. Changing sheets burns this many calories. You are actually meeting or exceeding the requirements for an active lifestyle just by doing your job.
That's it. She just told them. She didn't give them a workout plan. She didn't give them gym memberships.
Nothing. She just gave them information. She changed the expectation. She said, you are an exerciser.
Okay, but here's my problem with this. If you tell someone you're an athlete, maybe they start acting like one. Maybe they take the stairs instead of the elevator. Maybe they stop eating the donut in the break room. Did they control for behavior change?
This is the crucial question. Crumb thought of that. They monitored their diet, their activity levels outside of work. They checked for lifestyle changes. And they found nothing. There were no significant behavioral changes. They didn't join a gym. They didn't go on a diet.
See, nothing changed on the outside.
Nothing changed but the belief. And yet 4 weeks later, the informed group had lost weight. Their systolic blood pressure dropped by an average of 10 points. Their body fat percentage went down.
10 points. That's what you get from starting a medication.
It is statistically massive.
So how? If they aren't moving more and they aren't eating less, where did the fat go? Physics is physics. Calories in, calories out.
Physics is physics, but metabolism is flexible. This is what we often forget. The body isn't a simple furnace, it's a smart grid. The theory is that when the women viewed the work as stressful labor, their bodies were in a conservation mode.
Like a survival mode.
Exactly. If the brain thinks, I am exhausted, this is hard, I'm being overworked, it might dial down the metabolic rate to save energy. It might hold on to fat stores. It might keep inflammation high because it expects damage.
The body's saying, oh God, we have to survive this shift. Better hoard the energy.
Precisely. But once they relabeled it as exercise, the brain signaled the metabolism to ramp up. It shifted from survive to thrive. It changed how they processed insulin. It might have even subtly changed their posture or their muscle tone, what scientists call fidgeting or non-exercise activity thermogenesis.
So the belief literally turned up the thermostat on the furnace.
It seems so. It optimized the system.
That is incredible. It's like the body was waiting for permission to cash in the check.
In a way, yes. And this applies to all of us. This is the concept of invisible exercise.
Yes. I love this because I'm guilty of thinking if I didn't go for a run, I did nothing today.
Right. But did you walk to the bus stop? Did you carry heavy groceries up the stairs? Did you chase your toddler around the park?
All of the above. And usually while I'm doing it, I'm just annoyed. I'm thinking, ugh, this is heavy, or I'm so tired.
If you tell yourself that was just a hassle, you get the fatigue but not the full benefit. If you tell yourself that was my cardio for the morning, you are priming your body to respond as if it were exercise. You are engaging the expectation effect.
I am literally going to start counting my trips to the fridge as squats. Okay, maybe that's pushing it. But it also changes how we deal with the pain of exercise, right? The book talks about elite athletes like Michael Phelps or Eliud Kipchoge.
Oh, absolutely. We tend to think elite athletes don't feel pain, that they are machines. But that's not true. They feel the same burning in their lungs and legs that we do.
So why don't they stop? When I run and my legs burn, my brain predicts. Warning, damage, stop immediately. It's a threat response.
Exactly. I am dying, please sit down. But an elite athlete reframes that signal. They interpret the burn not as damage, but as data. They think, my body is preparing to perform. This is the feeling of speed. This is the engine warming up. They reappraise the sensation.
It's reappraisal. That's a key word in the book.
It is. Kipchoge has this mantra, I don't run with my legs, I run with my mind and my heart. It sounds poetic, but it's physiological. By not panicking at the sensation of effort, he keeps his body efficient. He avoids the nocebo of thinking he's hitting a wall.
So for the listener, and for me, the trick isn't to pretend it doesn't hurt. It's to change the label on the hurt. It's not suffering, it's building strength.
Precisely. And that leads us directly into the next big topic, stress. Because the way we label the burn of exercise is very similar to how we label the racing heart of anxiety.
Oh, this section was huge for me. This brings us to the stress paradox. Because if there is one thing I have been told my entire adult life, it is that stress is the enemy. Stress kills. Avoid stress.
And Robson argues that this belief, the belief that stress is toxic, is actually what makes stress toxic.
So you're saying stress isn't bad for me?
I'm saying the type of stress response you have is what matters. And surprisingly, you can control that type. We need to get a little technical here. We need to talk about the HPA axis.
The hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis.
Correct. This is your body's alarm system. When you face a challenge, a bear, a deadline, a public speaking gig, the HPA axis lights up. It mobilizes energy. It is the engine of arousal, but it can burn two different types of fuel.
Okay, what are the fuels?
Fuel number one is cortisol. We know this one. It's the threat hormone. It breaks down tissue to give you quick sugar. It suppresses your immune system because, hey, who needs an immune system when a bear is eating you?
Right, survival now, repair later.
Exactly. And in the long run, chronic cortisol is bad. It rots your arteries. It kills brain cells. But there's a second fuel, DHEAS.
DHEAS. Okay, let's unpack that. What is DHEAS?
Dehydroepiandrosterone sulfate. It's a mouthful, so we stick with DHEAS. It is a neurostory. It's actually a precursor to sex hormones like testosterone and estrogen. And crucially, it counters the negative effects of cortisol. It promotes brain growth. It helps immune function. It aids in tissue repair. It is the challenge hormone.
So in a perfect world, when I'm stressed, I want a DHEA cocktail, not a cortisol cocktail.
You want a high ratio of DHEAS to cortisol. That is what scientists call the growth index.
And the book claims I can change this ratio just by thinking.
By reappraising. This goes back to the prediction machine. If you look at your racing heart and sweaty palms and think, oh no, I'm failing, I'm anxious, I can't handle this, the brain predicts damage. It says threat and pumps cortisol.
But if I look at the same symptoms, same racing heart, same sweat, and think, I am amped up, my body is mobilizing resources to help me win,
then the brain predicts a challenge to be overcome. It says, let's go. And you get a spike in DHEAS.
that is exactly what the research shows, right? There was a study with students taking the GRE.
Yes, the big grad school exam, high stakes. They told one group of students, if you feel anxious, ignore it. Standard advice. But they told the second group, if your heart races, that is a good thing. It means your body is pumping more oxygen to your brain to help you think faster.
They just reframe the symptom. They give it a positive purpose.
And the result? The second group scored significantly higher on the math section. And not only that, months later, they were still performing better because they had learned to stop fearing their own physical reaction.
That is so powerful. It reminds me of the Greta Gerwig story in the book, the director of Barbie and Little Women.
Yes. She talks about how she used to be paralyzed by nervousness on set. She thought it meant she wasn't cut out for the job, but then she decided to reframe it. She stopped calling it fear and started calling it the throb of, I get to do this.
Get to do this versus I have to do this.
It sounds like semantic hair splitting, but biologically, it shifts you from a threat state, cortisol, to a challenge state, DHEAS. You are literally changing the chemical bath your brain is soaking in.
So next time I'm about to go into a meeting and my hands are shaking, I shouldn't try to calm down.
Calming down is often the wrong strategy because you are fighting your body's energy. You're pressing the brakes while the engine is revving. Instead, say, I am excited. My body is giving me the energy I need to crush this meeting. Ride the wave. Don't try to flatten it.
I love that. Ride the wave. Okay, let's talk about another thing we often fight against. Our own willpower. Or lack thereof.
The tricky jar theory.
Right. The popular idea, I've heard this a million times, is that willpower is like a battery or a muscle. If I use it up all morning resisting donuts, I won't have any left in the afternoon to write my report.
That is called ego depletion. It has been the dominant theory in psychology for decades. The idea is that self-control consumes glucose in the brain, and once it's gone, it's gone.
But Robson says that's a myth.
Well, it's the self-fulfilling prophecy. This is fascinating. Researchers, specifically Veronica Joe, found that ego depletion only happens to people who believe in ego depletion.
Wait, so if I think I'm going to run out of willpower, I run out. But if I don't think that, I don't.
Exactly. They did a study, the sugar lemonade study, but not the one you might know. They had people gargle with a sugary drink but spit it out.
So they didn't consume the sugar. No glucose went into the blood.
Exactly. But the receptors in the tongue tasted the sugar and signaled the brain. And for people who believed that their willpower was depleted and they needed a boost, just the taste of sugar was enough to restore their focus.
That proves it wasn't a fuel shortage. If it was a fuel shortage, gargling wouldn't fix it. It was the signal of fuel that released the mental brakes.
Precisely. The brain was rationing energy because it expected to run out. Once it got a signal saying resources are available, it unlocked the reserves.
And people with a non-limited mindset, people who believed that difficult tasks are energizing rather than draining, didn't show any drop in performance at all. They treated the first task as a warm-up.
A warm-up. That's such a different way to look at a hard day. Instead of I'm drained, it's okay, I'm in the flow now, the gears are turning.
And this has huge implications for productivity. If you tell yourself, I've had a hard meeting, I need to zone out and scroll social media for an hour to recharge, your brain shuts down resources. It says, okay, power save mode.
But if you tell yourself, I'm sharp, I'm focused, I'm just getting started, your brain unlocks more energy. It's the difference between a battery that runs out and a fire that gets hotter the more wood you throw on it.
But surely there's a limit. I mean, I can't work for 48 hours straight just because I believe I can.
Of course. Physical exhaustion is real. Sleep is non-negotiable. You cannot hallucinate away the need for sleep. But the mental feeling of, I can't make one more decision, is often an expectation effect.
The book mentions Barack Obama here. He famously wore only blue or gray suits to minimize decisions.
Right, and that's a valid strategy to reduce friction. But a researcher like Robson would argue that decision fatigue is largely a product of believing that decisions are expensive. If you enjoy making decisions, if you find it invigorating, you don't get fatigued.
So Obama's strategy works, but maybe partly because he believed he needed it.
Precisely.
Okay, moving on to something that affects how we treat other people. Intelligence. We've talked about how expectations shape our own bodies, but can my expectations shape your brain?
This is the Pygmalion effect, and the evidence suggests the answer is a resounding yes.
This brings us to the famous or infamous Spruce Elementary experiment.
This was back in the 60s. Robert Rosenthal and Lenore Jacobson went into a school in California. They gave all the kids an IQ test, but they didn't tell the teachers the real scores.
Here comes the trick.
They selected a group of students completely at random. Average kids, low-scoring kids, high-scoring kids, a mixed bag. And they told the teachers, these specific students are bloomers. Our test shows they are about to experience a massive spike in intelligence.
So they lied to the teachers. They pointed at random kids and said, genius incoming.
They did. But watch what happened. At the end of the year, they retested the kids. The bloomers, who remember were chosen at random, actually did show a massive spike in IQ scores, significantly higher than the other students.
So the teachers believed that these kids were smart, made them smart.
Yes. But it wasn't magic. It wasn't telepathy. It was behavior. Because the teachers expected these kids to bloom, they treated them differently.
How? Did they give them extra lessons?
No, it was subtler. It was micro-behaviors. They gave them more time to answer questions. They didn't interrupt them as much. They offered more specific feedback when they got things wrong, rather than just moving on. They smiled at them more. They created a warmer climate.
They coached them to success because they believed success was inevitable.
Exactly. And the students internalized that belief. They thought, the teacher thinks I'm smart, so I must be smart. So they tried harder. They persevered.
This has a really heavy flip side, though.
It does. It's the golem effect, the opposite of Pygmalion. If a teacher or a boss or a parent expects you to fail, you are statistically more likely to fail.
This brings in the social implications Robson talks about, the soft bigotry of low expectations.
It's a major driver of inequality. If we look at gender, race, or class, if a teacher looks at a student from a disadvantaged background and unconsciously predicts they will struggle, that teacher provides less support, less patience, and the student fails, confirming the teacher's bias.
It's a vicious cycle. And it's tragic because it masquerades as reality. The teacher thinks, see, I was right, but they made themselves right.
It is.
Yeah.
But the Pygmalion effect shows us the exit ramp. If we can adopt a growth mindset, the belief that intelligence isn't fixed, that it can grow, we can change outcomes.
That's Carol Dweck's work.
Yes. Robson ties Dweck's growth mindset directly into the expectation effect.
Yeah.
If you believe your brain is a muscle that gets stronger with effort, you welcome the struggle. If you believe your intelligence is fixed, you fear the struggle because it proves you aren't smart.
So whether it's for our kids, our employees, or ourselves, expecting potential creates potential.
Beautifully put.
Okay, we have arrived. The section I warned you about, the section that made me drop the book at my lap. Aging.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
Because we treat aging as an absolute biological inevitability. You get old, you crumble, you die. Entropy always wins.
But Robson throws out a statistic that stopped me in my tracks. He says that people with a positive view of aging live, on average, 7.5 years longer than those with a negative view.
7.5 years. Let's put that in perspective. If we cured all cancer tomorrow, eradicated it from the face of the earth, it would only add about 3 to 4 years to the average life expectancy.
Wait, what?
Yes. Statistically speaking, having a positive mindset about aging is more powerful for longevity than finding a cure for cancer. It's more powerful than quitting smoking.
That is insane. How? How can a thought keep you alive for 7 extra years?
It goes back to the mechanism we discussed with stress. If you believe aging equals decline, frailty, uselessness, and pain, then every time you forget your keys or your knee aches, your brain says, here it is, the end is near.
Threat response. Cortisol.
Exactly. You live in a state of chronic low-grade stress. And that cortisol inflammation damages your cells. It literally shortens your telomeres, the protective caps on your DNA that determine how many times a cell can divide. You age faster because you fear aging.
But if you have a positive view...
If you view aging as a time of wisdom, freedom, and continued growth, like the superagers, you don't get that stress response. You stay active. You engage with the world.
We have to talk about Patty Jones.
Patty Jones is the hero of this chapter. She is an acrobatic salsa dancer in her 80s.
And when I say acrobatic, I mean she is being thrown in the air by a partner 40 years younger than her.
Right. And her mindset is, I don't think about my age. I just think about what I want to do. She doesn't have the script that says 80-year-olds don't salsa. So her body continues to support her salsa dancing.
It's the use it or lose it principle, but driven by the mind. If you think you're too old to walk, you stop walking.
Yeah.
Then your muscles atrophy. Then you can't walk.
Exactly. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But perhaps the most visual proof of this is the counterclockwise study. We have to talk about the time machine.
Oh, the monastery study. This is Ellen Langer's masterpiece.
Yes. In 1979, she took a group of men in their 70s and 80s to a retreat in New Hampshire, a converted monastery.
Yeah.
But when they walked through the door, it wasn't 1979 anymore, it was 1959.
The level of detail here is wild. She had Ed Sullivan on the black and white TV. They had issues of Life magazine from 20 years prior scattering the tables. The music on the radio was Perry Como and Jack Benny.
And the rules were strict. No photos of their current families, no talking about the good old days. They had to speak in the present tense. They weren't remembering 1959. They were living in it.
So they're role-playing their younger selves.
Intense role-playing. And remember, these were frail men. Some walked with canes. Some couldn't carry their own bags when they arrived.
And 1 week later...
The changes were systemic. Their grip strength improved. Their joint flexibility increased. Their hearing improved, which is baffling, right? Hearing loss is supposed to be structural damage. But with the expectation of youth, their auditory processing sharpened.
And there's that detail about the touch football game.
Yes. These men who had hobbled off the bus were playing touch football on the lawn by the last day.
It makes you wonder how much of old age is biology and how much is just us playing a role we've been handed. I'm 80, so I should shuffle.
That's the script. And Langer tore up the script. She showed that the body has a memory of youth that can be reactivated if you provide the right context.
That is just... it gives me so much hope. It means we aren't just victims of the calendar.
We aren't. But, and here is the expert putting on the brakes a little bit, we need to be practical. This brings us to section 7, the toolkit. Because we don't want people walking away thinking, I can think away a broken leg.
Right. The warning label is important. Expectation effects are powerful, but they are biological. They have limits.
Correct. If you have a broken leg, you need a cast. If you have a bacterial infection, you need antibiotics. You can't manifest a bone knitting together instantly.
No, but your expectation can influence how much pain you feel, how much inflammation you produce, and how fast you heal. It's a multiplier, not a magic wand.
Exactly. So how do we apply this? Robson gives us a few techniques. The first one we touched on, reappraisal.
Yes. This is about changing the label. Don't suppress feelings, relabel them.
I'm not anxious. I'm excited. This hunger isn't starvation. It's my body burning fat. This frustration isn't failure. It's learning. It's about rewriting the dictionary in your head.
Second technique, self-distancing. This is great for when you are stuck in a negative loop.
This is the third person thing. Instead of saying, I am so stressed I can't do this, you say, what should your name do in this situation?
What should host speaker do right now?
It sounds silly, but it works. It detaches you from the immediate emotional threat. It engages the rational brain. It helps you view the situation objectively, which lowers the stress response.
I do this sometimes when I give advice to friends. I'm great at solving their problems, so I just need to treat myself like a friend.
Exactly. Technique number 3, question your scripts.
This is the detective work.
Ask yourself, why do I think I have a bad memory? Why do I think I need sugar to focus at 3 p.m.? Why do I think I'm bad at math?
Challenge the micro-illusions. Usually we find that these scripts come from one bad experience 10 years ago or something a teacher said once.
And once you identify the script, you can rewrite it.
And finally, the act as if principle.
This brings us back to rituals. If you want to be a writer, adopt the routine of a writer. If you want to be an athlete, do the warm-up of an athlete. The behavior convinces the brain, which then supports the behavior.
Like the basketball players with their lucky charms. It's not the charm, it's the confidence the charm gives them.
Correct. The ritual builds the prediction of success.
This has been such a journey. We've gone from Hmong demons to hotel cleaners to 80-year-old salsa dancers.
And the common thread is the prediction machine. Your brain is not a passive observer. It is an active creator of your reality.
That is the aha moment for me. The most empowering thing about this book is realizing that we have access to the control panel. We can't change everything, we can't change the world or our genetics, but we can rewrite the code our brain uses to interpret the world.
And that interpretation changes your hormones, your immune system, and your capabilities.
So here is the final provocative thought for you listening right now. If your reality is shaped by your expectations, what is one negative expectation you are holding on to right now? I'm not a morning person. I get sick every winter. I'm too old to learn a language.
Identify it.
Yeah.
Challenge it. See what happens if you rewrite that line of code.
You might just surprise yourself. Thank you so much for diving deep with us today.
It was a pleasure.
Expect great things, everyone. We'll see you in the next deep dive.